I'm Zach. I was born here in Washington, lived here my whole life. Um, Currently a software developer at a company in Seattle, and I work from home for the last couple of years. And so I don't get out a whole lot. I'm always here at the house working. And I love to I love to read and learn stuff. So I spend a lot of time reading books and watching like lectures. Um, and then as like far as more like hobbies, I really enjoy fishing. That's probably my all-time favorite thing to do. I also like shooting. I go shooting with a couple guys from the church about 5 times a year up in Squim. We shoot these clay pigeons. Um, so we do that quite a bit. That's always fun. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I was pretty much born and raised in the church. My grandparents were all Nazarenes. My parents were Nazarenes. My earliest memories were at the Portrait Nazarene Church, even before the building they're currently in. So it was the old building. My parents used to travel around and would do VBSs at different Nazarene churches. So I remember being like, one of the churches I remember was the Nazarene church here, I think in Tacoma. So I was always at church when I was young. My family was super involved, but there's not a single point in my life that I can point to and say that that was the moment that I was saved, or that's the moment that I had this big encounter with God and started taking my faith seriously. Because as far as I can remember, I've always believed, and I've always taken it seriously. It's just, I mean, of course you have struggles like everyone else, but I never really knew what it was like to not walk with the Lord. I've never really like wandered away and then came back. I don't just accept things because that's the way that I was taught. And so my faith isn't based just because on the fact that I was born in a Christian home. It's more of that when I've looked at the evidence and I've looked at all the different arguments. And one of the big things that's always been really interesting to me is when I look at, like when I would study math, it was always just kind of pointed to this idea that there had to be an intelligent designer behind the universe. And so that's kind of where a lot of my faith is like centered on is this more intellectual level of like, there's a God out there. And then it kind of becomes, well, who's the real God? Is it the God of the Judeo-Christian God? Is it, some other God? And again, when you look at all the evidence out there, I just think it all points to the Judeo-Christian God and to Jesus. And so that's where I'm at, because I've had people, say to me, like friends, and I would talk to them, they're like, well, if you didn't grow up in a Christian home, you probably wouldn't believe this. And it's really not that for me. So I was in church my whole life. I did Bible quizzing in high school, and I continued to help with Bible quizzing on and off for basically since high school. So it's been like, 20, 25 years I've been around quizzing, and now I'm coaching that, which I was tricked into that by Christina. Didn't want to coach, but now I'm stuck doing it, and that's kind of fun. But yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm at now. So one of the things that was kind of a big change for me happened, I think, maybe about a year ago. I was walking at night. But before I actually tell that story, let me give a little backstory. So like I mentioned, I did Bible quizzing when I was a teen, but I actually started memorizing scripture when I was in 6th grade. I went to a Christian school for a year, and we were required to memorize about a chapter every week. So by the end of the school year, I had memorized around 30 to 40 chapters of the Bible. And then when I heard about Bible quizzing, I was like, oh, this will be fun. I know how to memorize scripture. And so I went on to start memorizing the complete book rather than just like reading and trying to study. I was like, I'm just going to memorize the whole book. And I only got to quiz for 3 years because of when I started. And so as I continued to help with quizzing, I kept memorizing scripture along with the quizzers. And by the time I was about 24 years old, I had memorized about 6,500 verses. And that's about a fifth of the Bible and more than half the New Testament. And so I had like all this knowledge of the Bible, and I've always had kind of this my relationship like with God. I wouldn't say there wasn't a relationship there, but it's always been like I was really focused on like Bible study and theological discussions and that sort of thing. And so, anyways, about a year ago, as I was walking at night one time, I was thinking about that passage in Matthew where Jesus says, "On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, didn't we do all these things in your name? Didn't we cast out demons and heal the sick?'" And I was like, well, what would be the right answer to say if God was to, if Jesus was to say, well, like, why should I let you into heaven? It's kind of this question a lot of people, pose, and it's like, well, what's the right answer? And I was like, well, I could say, well, I was always at church helping. I was always in ministry. Didn't I do all these things? Like, well, that's not a good answer. And you could say, well, I believe in Jesus. You could be like, I believe in you. And he could say, well, even the demons believe that. So like, what's the right answer? And then all of a sudden I was like, well, the right answer is like, are you joking? Like, what are you talking about? We spent time together every morning. We were talking every day. And like, we're friends. You know me. Like, that would be the right answer. And that was kind of this shift in kind of my thinking as I would like look back at my day. It would be like, well, I read the Bible, but did I spend time with the Lord today? Did I, and it's not just, like your day or your weeks, like, well, how am I doing? Am I spending time with him? Am I talking to him? Or am I just studying and just reading and like gaining more knowledge, which isn't bad. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why my faith, I think, is so strong, is because you have all this knowledge. It's not just emotions or anything like that, but it can't be only that. And so I think that was a big kind of like change this way I view things.